If you watch us regularly, you know this is Chris Doyle, a Middle East commentator, director of the Council of Arab-British Understanding. Thanks so much for your time, Chris. Let's get one thing straight about Keir Starmer's position. Is he reluctant to recognise a Palestinian state? Is he being pushed into a situation which he's uncomfortable with?
Well, Keir Starmer is seemingly reluctant. He has refused so far to join with France in its announcement last week that it, from President Macron, that it would recognise a state of Palestine formally in September. But there is a recall of his cabinet. There were 255 members of parliament, the majority of whom were Labour MPs, writing to him to push for him to make such a recognition. But there's also pressure on him to take action on the genocide in Gaza, because there are obviously the horrific scenes that you have been reporting on and showing from your reports from Gaza. And public opinion is outraged. And even elements you would never, ever expect to be seen in any way as sympathetic to Palestinians are saying this is enough. We've even had front page covers of really right-wing press who are, yet again, are normally very pro-Israel, carrying pictures of starving children. 88 have died of malnutrition since October 2023. So the pressure is all-encompassing. Starmer makes an argument. He says that he will only recognise if it's really going to help a path towards a two-state solution. But the real question is whether he'll recognise to ensure that there will be any state at all in existence, because Gaza is being wiped out, as you'd heard, it's in danger of being annexed by Israel. And quite frankly, most Palestinians in the West Bank see that this is going to be their fate in the future, that there will be annexation of the West Bank and further military operations there to really bring their lives down to that of Gaza as well.
Chris, I've seen you at international conferences around the world. I have no doubt that you know Mustafa Barghouti. If you had heard him before we came to you, he said he wants sanctions. The EU has indicated to Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy of Donald Trump, that it will impose sanctions on Israel if Israel doesn't take actions that the EU demands. And much of that is based on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Do you ever see Brussels imposing those kind of sanctions that would make any difference to Israel? Sanctions have made no difference to Russia, of course.
Well, I think that there is a major difference in that the Israeli economy is very tied to that of the West, and in particular Europe. A lot of its trade is with Europe, also culturally in so many ways. So certainly initial waves of real sanctions would have a telling impact on a lot of the Israeli economy and society. But obviously what we're really focused on is trying to get at the end of the genocide, get the aid in. If it requires sanctions, Mustafa Barghouti, my friend, was absolutely spot on. That is what is needed. And European Union could do this. It requires political will. It requires countries like Hungary to agree to it as well. But there's much can be done. Britain, outside of the EU, can impose sanctions as well. Because I do think that the only way that Netanyahu is going to be stopped from all of these plans is raw pressure. He actually has admitted, as have other ministers, that if it wasn't for international pressure, even the pitiful amount of aid that is coming in now through airdrops and 120 lorries, which is nowhere near enough, wouldn't be happening. Gaza would still be under a full blockade if this Israeli government had its way. So pressure is needed. Sanctions, certainly disinvestment for sure.
There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect with the sanctions placed on individual ministers. People like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, they can happily live their lives, presumably staying inside Israel. Maybe travel bans don't make such a difference to them. Why not target the very highest authorities? Clearly, there are arrest warrants out for Yoav Gallant, former defense minister, and Benjamin Netanyahu. But surely, if Western nations were to impose sanctions on Netanyahu, his reputation at home would be further diminished. It would place more pressure on him to find a solution to what is shocking the world.
Well, actually, Adnan, in the case of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, they don't live in Israel. They live in settlements.
Yeah, correct.
So
Yeah.
they're actually don't even live in the sovereign territory of Israel. But your broader point, of course, is absolutely right. I mean, there are many other ministers who made chilling comments, genocidal comments. That alone should be enough to see them sanctioned. That should have happened ages ago. But there's also industry. So why should we be selling arms to the state of Israel? Germany sells a huge amount of arms. So Britain has imposed some embargoes, but we're still selling parts to the F-35 pool that Israel can use. We should be ceasing all military cooperation. Absolutely. I mean, there are many levels of these sanctions, so you can escalate them up. That this is nothing new. We've done it with other countries in the past when they have transgressed international law. So we need to get into the process of doing that with Israel. And we need to stop talking about Israel as an ally or shared values, because this government, it shouldn't be considered as an ally. And it certainly doesn't share any of the values that most right-thinking people would entertain at all. So he's got to be stopped. I mean, Israel is acting as a rogue state, and there's ways of dealing with rogue states.
Chris, thank you so much for the analysis. Really appreciate it. Chris Doyle in London.